The scent of henna lingered in the air, warm, earthy, sweet. It mixed with the sound of laughter, dolky beats, and the soft hum of traditional wedding songs. Her Mehndi night was everything she had imagined as a little girl. The lights, the colors, the chaos, the joy. But beneath all the celebration, there was one thing that made it truly special: Ayan. Sitting in the center of the gathering, Zara kept her hands still as the Mehndi artist worked carefully. Delicate paisleys and floral swirls covered her skin. And hidden in one of the intricate designs, the artist began tracing 5 letters. Ayan. Zara blushed as she watched his name take shape on her palm. "You want it hidden or visible?" the artist asked with a grin. "Hide it a little," she whispered. "But not too well. He should have to try just a bit." Everyone around her teased and joked. Her cousins shouted lyrics from old wedding songs, and her aunties danced with unmatched energy. But Zara's focus was only on her hands, or rather, on the name now etched into them. She remembered the first time he had held those very hands. They were in a bookstore, both reaching for the same novel. Their fingers had touched, and their eyes had met. A cliché? Maybe. But to her, it was the beginning of something sacred. 3 years had passed since that moment. 3 years of stolen glances, midnight calls, endless texts, hidden meetings, and tearful prayers. Ayan wasn't perfect. He was impulsive, moody, sometimes selfish, but he loved her. Or so she believed. Their journey wasn't easy. His family had reservations. Hers was traditional and strict. There had been fights. There had been threats. But in the end, love had won. Or so she had told herself. Tonight, Zara felt like she had reached the finish line. Or rather, the starting point of a new life. A life where she'd wake up beside him. Where his promises would become her reality. Her best friend, Alina, sat beside her, resting her chin on Zara's shoulder. "You look like you're dreaming," Alina teased. "I am," Zara smiled. "About him? Always him." They both giggled like schoolgirls, the way only best friends could. Alina had seen it all. The heartbreaks, the fights, the nights Zara cried over his silence, and the mornings she smiled at his texts. She had warned Zara once, gently, that love shouldn't be this hard. But Zara was stubborn. She believed in fixing, not quitting. And Ayan, he had promised. "I'll fight the world for you, Zara," he had said during one of their toughest moments. "Even if you stop believing in us, I never will." Those words had stayed with her. They were tattooed deeper than any name in Mehndi could ever be. As the artist finished, Zara admired the design. Her hands looked beautiful, but it was his name that made her heart flutter. "Let it dry properly," the artist said. "The longer it stays, the darker it gets." Zara nodded. "And the darker it gets, the more he loves me, right?" she joked. Everyone around laughed. But deep inside, she wanted it to be true. She needed it to be true. Meanwhile, in a corner of the city, Ayan sat alone in his apartment, his phone buzzing with congratulatory messages, pictures from the Mehndi function, and Zara's smiling face glowing on screen. But he wasn't smiling back. He was distracted, no, conflicted. His phone vibrated again. This time, a message from someone else. "So, you're really doing this? After everything we shared?" He stared at the text. He didn't reply. He looked back at Zara's photo, her eyes full of trust, her hands proudly showing his name. And yet his fingers hovered over the screen, unsure. Because while she was getting his name written with pride, he was erasing someone else's from his past, or maybe, not erasing her at all. 3 days. That's how long it took for Zara's world to tilt on its axis. Just 3 days before the wedding, when the final fittings were done, the guest list confirmed, the food ordered, Zara received the message that would crack her soul open. It was 11:42 p.m. Her phone buzzed under her pillow. She assumed it was Ayan, another sweet message, maybe a voice note saying how he couldn't wait to see her as his bride. But it wasn't him. It was from an unknown number. No words. Just one picture. Ayan. In a cafe. Holding hands with a girl. But it wasn't the hand-holding that destroyed her. It was the timestamp on the image. 2 days ago. Her fingers trembled. For a moment, she thought it must be fake. A mistake. A prank. But the more she stared, the clearer the truth became. It was him. The smile. The posture. The watch on his wrist. The mole near his neck. It was her Ayan. Only not hers anymore. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she texted him.
Need to talk. Now.
No response. She called. It rang once, then went dead. She called again. Switched off. By morning, her face was pale. Her hands still stained beautifully with his name, but now they shook every time she looked at them. She didn't tell anyone. How could she? The entire house was buzzing with excitement. Her mother was glowing with pride. Her father, usually reserved, had been laughing more than usual. Her siblings were planning dances, cousins preparing games, family flying in from abroad. This wasn't just her wedding. It was a celebration for the whole family. A reward after years of struggle. How do you tell them the groom might be a liar? The next day, he called. Zara, he said, voice hesitant, I know what you saw. She stayed silent. It's not what you think. Still silent. She was someone from my past. She reached out, said she just wanted to talk. Closure. That's all. And the hand-holding? She finally asked, her voice quieter than a whisper. A pause. I didn't mean for it to happen. Zara closed her eyes. You didn't mean to meet her. You didn't mean to touch her. What exactly did you mean, Ayan? Another pause. I love you. She didn't say she loved him back.
She didn't know if she did.
Love shouldn't feel like this. Still, she said one thing. Let's not ruin everything. We'll talk after the wedding. Because deep down, she was still the girl who believed. Still the girl who wore his name on her palms. The wedding day came like a tidal wave. Guests arrived in glitter and gold. The stage sparkled. Photographers clicked endlessly. Every time Zara forced a smile, it was captured, immortalized. Her makeup was flawless. Her dress, a deep maroon lehenga with gold embroidery, made her look like a dream. But inside, she felt like a ghost. She didn't look for him when she walked in. She didn't need to. She already knew the Ayan she loved wasn't standing at that altar. That Ayan was gone. Or maybe he had never existed. Still, she walked. Gracefully. Calmly. Because while he had cracked her heart, she wouldn't let him break her spirit. The nikah was read. Vows exchanged. Pictures taken. He smiled beside her. Acted like nothing happened. Held her hand in front of guests. Gently brushed her cheek when no one watched. The perfect groom. The doting husband-to-be. But Zara? She carried a secret. A printed version of the cafe photo, folded neatly, tucked inside her clutch, right next to her lipstick. She didn't show it. Not yet. Because she wasn't ready to confront him in front of the world. But the time would come. For now, she wore her pain like she wore her jewelry, beautifully hidden, quietly gleaming. That night, as she sat in the bridal suite, surrounded by silence, she opened her palms one last time. The Mehndi had darkened, just as the artist said it would. His name stood out boldly, proudly, against her skin. But now it didn't look like love. It looked like a bruise. The room was glowing with lights and laughter. Zara sat at the center, her hands gently drying as the Mehndi settled into her skin. Music filled the space, soft drums, clapping, teasing. Her cousins danced around her, aunties fought over camera angles, and someone was shouting for more chai. But Zara's heart was somewhere else. She had just received a text. Not from Ayan. From someone anonymous. Again. Just like last time. But this time, it wasn't a picture. It was a screenshot of a conversation. Ayan. It's just for a while. I have to do this for family. You know I only want you. Unknown girl. But you're getting married tomorrow. Ayan. I'll handle it. You trust me, right? Zara read the messages again and again. Her eyes stung. Her name was still wet on her palm, written with dreams. And yet here he was writing lies to another woman. She got up quietly from the Mehndi cushion, pretending she needed water. She walked past the doll, past the giggling girls, past the camera that followed her like a shadow. She found a corner, dimly lit, near the side entrance, and sat on the stairs. Her hands trembled. Her chest tightened. She had told herself it was a mistake. That picture, maybe it was old, maybe taken out of context. But this was his voice,
His tone.
his words, his betrayal. No excuse could explain this. Alina found her minutes later. Hey, everything okay? Zara didn't answer. Alina sat beside her and gently took her phone. She read the messages, her face falling with each line. Zara, she whispered. Zara's voice cracked. He's lying to someone else while I wear his name. Alina placed a hand on her shoulder, but Zara shrugged it off, not angrily, just numb. I should call it off, Zara said, her voice hollow.
Right now.
Before it's too late. You still have time, Alina said gently. No one will blame you. Not after this. But that's the thing. Zara wasn't afraid of blame. She was afraid of her father's silence, her mother's tears, her younger brother's questions, the community's whispers, and worse, her own reflection. She had fought for this relationship, defended it, believed in it, ignored red flags, shut down doubts, told herself it was all worth it. If she left now, she wouldn't just be ending a wedding. She'd be admitting that her faith in him was a mistake. Back inside, the night continued. More music, more photos, more smiles. Zara returned to the stage. She sat down again, gracefully, as if nothing had happened. The cameras clicked. The girls threw rose petals. A relative shouted, "Show us your Mehndi. Is his name hidden well?" Zara lifted her hand and smiled. It was there, Ayan, written in swirls and stars. And in that moment, she realized something. The name was written on her hand, but it would never again be written on her heart. She went through the rest of the evening like an actress in her final scene, graceful, poised, calm. Inside, something was dying. Not love, that had died the moment she read his messages. What was dying now was the version of herself that trusted him. That night, in her room, she stared at the henna. It had darkened beautifully. People say the darker the Mehndi, the deeper the love. But for Zara, it had become the color of irony. She picked up a tissue, tried rubbing it off. Nothing. She tried water. Still nothing. Henna doesn't go easily. Not when it's fresh. Much like heartbreak. The phone buzzed again. Ayan. Missing you already. Can't wait for tomorrow. Zara stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed slowly. Who else are you saying that to tonight? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Ayan. Zara, don't do this now. You're being dramatic. She felt a chill. He didn't deny it, didn't explain, didn't apologize. Just called her dramatic, like her pain was a performance. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The night faded into dawn. Birds chirped. The city slowly woke up. And Zara sat on her bed, still in bridal Mehndi, still in disbelief. But also, more awake than she had ever been in her life. Tomorrow, she would marry him. Or maybe she wouldn't.
She didn't know yet.
But one thing she did know. The man she loved was a stranger now. And the name on her hands? It was nothing more than a stain. The wedding hall glittered like a dream. Drapes of gold and ivory hung from every corner. Chandeliers cast a soft glow over hundreds of dressed-up guests, family, friends, neighbors, all gathered to witness what they thought was the happiest day of Zara's life. They were wrong. Inside Zara, a funeral was already underway. She smiled as the cameras clicked. She danced when her cousins pulled her into the center. She laughed at jokes she didn't hear. She posed with relatives she couldn't name. Every step, every smile, every sway of her lenga, carefully measured, perfectly rehearsed. But behind her soft kohl-lined eyes was a truth no one could see. She had already buried the man whose name stained her hands. The betrayal hadn't faded. It had only settled, like dust over untouched memories. His messages to another woman played on repeat in her mind, like a song she couldn't silence. You trust me, right?
He had written that.
He had touched another hand while she decorated hers with his name. He had made promises to someone else, while she sat under fairy lights, dreaming of a future with him. And yet here she was, dressed in red, crowned in gold, drowning in silence. Zara, your turn, a cousin shouted. She blinked. The bride's solo dance. Everyone clapped, cheered. Someone handed her a dupatta. Someone else started the music, a slow romantic song, the kind brides usually cry to. But Zara didn't cry. She stood up with grace, walked to the center, and let the music guide her. Every step she took felt like a goodbye, not to her family, not to the people watching, but to the version of herself that had once believed in fairy tales. She twirled, slowly, like a flower in the wind, fragile but controlled. She moved her hands, the same hands that had once trembled when he said, I love you. Now, they moved with elegance, no longer carrying the weight of expectation. The crowd was mesmerized. To them, it looked like love, a shy bride dancing for her groom. But in Zara's heart, she wasn't dancing for him. She was dancing away from him. Ayan watched from the front row. His smile was confident, unaware, or perhaps pretending to be. He had seen the messages. He knew what she had found out. But she hadn't confronted him directly. Not publicly. Not even during the wedding photos. Not during the ring ceremony. She had only looked at him with calm eyes. And that unnerved him more than any accusation ever could. As the song reached its chorus, Zara's movements softened. Her eyes glistened, but the tears didn't fall. Not yet. She spun once more, then stopped, facing the crowd. A moment of stillness. The hall erupted into applause. Everyone clapped. Her mother wiped away a tear of joy. Her father smiled proudly. Ayan stood up to greet her, clapping like everyone else. But he didn't know that he was the one she was mourning in that moment. Later that night, while the guests were busy eating and the photographers focused on someone else, Zara slipped away to a quiet corridor in the back of the hall. Alina followed. You okay? She asked gently. Zara leaned against the wall. I don't think I've ever been less okay. Then why are you going through with this? Zara looked down at her hands. Because I want him to see the version of me he lost. Alina frowned. He doesn't deserve this version of you. I know, Zara whispered. But I do. They stood there for a moment in silence and understanding. Then Alina asked, Will you ever tell him you know? Zara smiled faintly. No. Why? Because the silence will haunt him longer than any words ever could. The night dragged on. More rituals. More smiles. Her cheeks hurt from faking joy. Her heart ached from holding back truth. But Zara did it all. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the final scream. Back in her room that night, she finally let the tears fall. She wiped her makeup away, washed her face, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her Mehndi was at its darkest. His name stood bold, proud, even mocking her. She took a cloth, pressed it hard, rubbed. It didn't fade. It never does on the first try. But she wasn't trying to erase it from her hands anymore. She had already erased him from her heart. The sun rose slowly, peeking through sheer curtains that swayed gently with the morning breeze. The air was quiet, not the kind of quiet that comes from peace, but the kind that follows a storm. Zara sat at her dressing table, still in parts of her bridal outfit. Bangles scattered on the floor. Earrings lay forgotten on the vanity. Her hair was half open, messy from sleep she never truly found. And her hands? Still stained with the deep orange of dried Mehndi. His name. Ayan stared back at her from the curve of her left palm. But today, unlike the day before, it no longer felt like love. It felt like residue. Like something left behind after something beautiful had burned down. She got up without speaking, walked quietly to the bathroom, closed the door behind her, and stared at her reflection. No makeup, no jewelry, no crowd. Just her, and the girl who had believed too much.
She turned the tap on.
The water was cold, sharp. She took a bar of soap, lathered it until her hands were coated in white foam, then began to scrub.
Hard.
Fingertips to wrist. Circles.
Lines.
Pressure. Again and again. The Mehndi didn't go easily. It clung to her skin like memories do. She picked up a pumice stone, rubbed harder. She didn't cry. Not this time. Because this wasn't sadness anymore. This was release. The skin on her palm began to redden, burn slightly. But the letters started to fade. The Y disappeared first. Then the A. Then the curve of the N was gone. And finally, all that remained was a blurry smudge, like a shadow of something that once mattered. She dropped the stone into the sink and took a breath. For the first time in days, her hands were free. And so was she. Downstairs, the family was awake. Wedding leftovers were being packed. Someone was arguing about who would return the borrowed chairs. Dishes clinked, kids ran. Women chatted about what a perfect bride Zara had been.
Perfect.
That word rang in her head like an echo. They didn't know. No one knew. To them, she had married the man of her dreams. Only she knew that she had walked into something different, something broken. And only she knew that she had already begun walking out of it. Her phone buzzed. A message from him. Ayan. Good morning, Mrs. Ayan, face blowing a kiss, missed you all night. She stared at it. Not because it touched her, it didn't. But because of the irony. He missed her? While she had been busy removing him from her skin. She didn't reply. Didn't even open the chat. Instead, she opened the gallery. Scrolled to their photos. Mehndi, engagement, random memories, all smiled back at her. She selected all. And hit delete. Are you sure? The screen asked.
She was.
More than ever. She joined the family later, dressed simply, her hands bare. No bangles. No Mehndi. No trace of him. Aren't you going to do the post-wedding rituals? Her mother asked softly. Zara smiled. I just want to rest today, Amy. Her mother kissed her forehead. Of course. You deserve it. Zara nodded.
Yes.
She did. She deserved rest. She deserved peace. She deserved more than empty promises and half-hearted love. Later, Alina came to visit, the only one who knew. She looked at Zara's hands and said nothing at first. But her eyes softened. You erased it, she whispered. Zara looked at her palms.
No.
I just made room for something better. Alina smiled. What's that?
Me.
That night, as the world assumed she was basking in post-wedding bliss, Zara sat on her bed writing in a small journal she had once bought with him. She wrote only one sentence. He gave me a name, I gave myself back. And with that, she closed the book, then turned off the light. The wedding hall was alive with anticipation. Guests were arriving, cameras were flashing, flower petals were being arranged one last time across the aisle. Waiters rushed with trays, uncles adjusted their waistcoats, aunties fixed each other's dupattas, and the makeup artist stood near the bridal suite door, waiting for the final touch-up. Inside that bridal room, Zara sat in silence. Not nervous. Not overwhelmed. Just still. She was wearing her wedding dress, the one her mother had picked with so much love, the one everyone said made her look like a queen. The dupatta was already pinned in place, the bangles perfectly aligned. Her Mehndi had faded slightly now, but the stain still whispered his name. But today, it would be the last time it ever did. On the table beside her sat a small envelope.
Plain.
Cream-colored. Handwritten. Inside it, folded twice, was a letter. Her final vow, not to him, but to herself. She had written it the night before, after erasing his name from her hands and deleting every memory from her phone. It was the only thing she didn't throw away. Because this wasn't something to be screamed. It was something to be understood. And if he didn't, that was on him. Someone knocked. Zara Beta, are you ready? It was her aunt. She didn't respond right away. She took one last look in the mirror. The girl who stared back at her wasn't heartbroken anymore. She was done. Not broken, complete. Zara stood up.
Picked up the envelope.
Walked to the door. Instead of opening it, she placed the letter gently on the inside doorknob. Then she turned back, walked to the window, and opened it, not just for air but for freedom. Below, Alina waited in the car. Engine on. Door open. Zara gave her one nod. Then climbed down the emergency stairs, barefoot, silent. Not a single tear in sight. Meanwhile, the bridal march began inside the hall. Ayan waited at the stage, smug and smiling, surrounded by his groomsmen. Cameras zoomed in. Guests whispered, "Here she comes." Except she didn't. Minutes passed. Then more. The music looped awkwardly. The photographer looked confused. Whispers turned into questions. Ayan checked his phone. No new messages. He glanced at his watch. Then again at the aisle. Still nothing. Finally, Zara's aunt walked up to the bridal room. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Harder. Then slowly, cautiously, she opened the door.
Empty.
No bride. Just a letter. She picked it up and rushed downstairs. In seconds, the atmosphere shifted. From joy to disbelief. From celebration to confusion. Ayan, now pale, unfolded the paper. And read. Dear Ayan, you once asked me if I trusted you. I did. With my heart, my name, my prayers, my future. But love isn't just about the moments we spend together. It's about the ones we face apart. And when I was getting my hands decorated with your name, you were busy writing promises to someone else. I don't hate you. I don't even blame you anymore. But I do thank you. Because if I hadn't seen the truth before today, I might have spent years believing in a lie. I'm not coming to the stage. Because I already left something behind. The version of me that thought your love was enough. You gave me a wedding. But I gave myself back my life.
Take care. Zara.
Gasps echoed through the crowd. Someone dropped their glass. Ayan's hands shook. He looked around, as if hoping it was a joke, a prank, a mistake. It wasn't.
She was gone.
Outside, in Alina's car, Zara sat quietly, watching the world blur by. You okay? Alina asked. Zara smiled. Never been more. They drove away, slowly, peacefully. And with every mile that passed, Zara felt something loosen inside her. The pressure to be perfect. The need to be wanted. The weight of loving someone who couldn't love her right. She looked down at her hands one last time. No Mehndi. No name. Just skin. Just her. And that was finally enough. 3 days after the wedding that never was, the front gate creaked open. It was mid-afternoon. The sun was harsh, and the air carried the smell of summer dust. Zara sat in the garden, barefoot, sipping chai slowly. The silence of the day a kind of comfort she hadn't known in weeks. Then she heard the voice. Zara. She turned slightly. Not surprised. Not shaken. Just quiet. Ayan. Wearing the same overconfident look that once made her heart skip. But now, it felt forced, like a mask that didn't fit anymore. He stepped closer. I just want to talk. She didn't reply. He looked around, expecting someone to stop him, yell, hit him maybe. But no one did. The family had gone quiet after the letter. No public drama. No screaming matches. Just silence. He hated that. He had come prepared for chaos, but found calm, and that terrified him more. I know I hurt you, he began, voice low. Zara raised her eyebrows slightly, as if to say, you think? I messed up. I didn't know what I wanted. I got confused. I let someone from the past distract me. But I never stopped loving you. She stared at her cup of chai, as if it were more interesting than his speech. He kept going. You and I, we had something real. Please don't throw that away. I made a mistake. But I came back. That has to mean something, right? Zara set her cup down gently. Coming back doesn't mean anything, she said finally. Some people return only when they realize the door is closed. He swallowed hard. I panicked. Everything was moving so fast. No, she interrupted. You didn't panic. You chose. You just didn't think I'd ever find out. He looked down at the ground, guilt tightening his shoulders. I didn't think you'd leave, he said. She gave a soft laugh, not amused but amazed.
Exactly.
That's what made it so easy for you, didn't it? He stepped closer.
Zara, please.
Give me a chance to fix this. She shook her head slowly.
No.
A long silence passed between them. Birds chirped. A breeze shifted the curtains inside. Zara stood up. I'm not angry anymore, Ayan, she said softly. I'm not here to argue. I'm just done. He blinked, caught off guard. So, you're not going to shout? Curse me? Hit me? I don't need to. Then say something. Anything. I already did, she replied. In that letter. You just didn't listen. She picked up her cup again. He watched her, searching for some trace of the old Zara. The girl who waited for his messages. Who forgave easily. Who smiled when he made weak promises and believed in the idea of someday. But she wasn't there anymore. That Zara had been buried under the weight of betrayal. This Zara? She had chosen peace over noise. Clarity over chaos. Herself over him. You think you'll find someone who'll love you the way I did? He asked, a trace of desperation in his voice. She looked him in the eye.
Calm. Steady.
I'm not looking, she said. Love isn't something I need to chase. Especially not if it looks like what you gave me. He had nothing left to say. He stood there for a while longer, hoping for a crack in her tone, her face, her resolve. But there was none. Only peace. And peace doesn't beg. It doesn't plead. It lets go. When he finally turned to leave, she didn't stop him. Didn't look back. Didn't whisper a final word. Because there was nothing left to say. She went back to her chair, picked up her cup, and took another sip of her now cold chai. Still peaceful. Still whole. Still free. That night, Alina called. He actually came? She asked. He did, Zara replied. And I gave him the only thing he never gave me. What's that? Closure. Whispers traveled faster than footsteps. Within hours of Zara's vanished wedding, distant relatives called each other with half-truths and guesses. She ran away? He cheated? Was it cold feet? Did they fight? The truth, though, the real truth, stayed with only a few. Her parents, her brother, Alina, and none of them said a word. Not to protect Ayan, but to protect Zara's dignity. Because the world wouldn't understand a girl walking away from a decorated stage. But they'd definitely remember it. Her father sat silently for days. A man of few words, now almost mute. But it wasn't anger that clouded his face, it was grief. Not for the broken wedding, but for his daughter, who had quietly carried her heartbreak without ever asking for help.
Zara, however, was calm.
She spent her mornings helping her mother around the house, her afternoons reading quietly, and her evenings sitting in the garden, sipping tea like nothing had shattered. People kept asking her how she was. Her answer stayed the same. Lighter. Then came the day no one expected. Her mother walked into her room with a tray of tea and a proposal. Literally. He's a good man, she said gently. His mother came herself. They know everything. And they still want to meet you. Zara raised her eyebrows. They know everything? Her mother nodded. Even about the cancelled wedding. Zara laughed softly. And that doesn't scare them away? Her mother smiled. Not everyone sees a scar and walks away, Beta. Some see strength. The man's name was Hamza. He was quiet, a little awkward, and not the poetic type like Ayan. But he was honest.
Direct.
Transparent. On their first meeting, he said, I'm not here to fix you. You don't need fixing. I just don't want to lie to you, ever. That sentence hit her harder than any love confession ever had. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were no violins. No butterflies.
But there was respect.
And for the first time in months, safety. Within weeks, Zara said yes. Not out of desperation. Not to prove anything to Ayan. Not to erase the past. But because she had made peace with herself. She wasn't marrying to complete her story. She was marrying because her story had already begun.
This was just a new chapter.
The preparations began again. But this time, the energy in the house was different.
Softer. Calmer.
There were no grand announcements. No hashtags. No staged pre-wedding shoots. Just real moments. And Zara, now fully herself, chose everything, from her dress to her jewelry to the new Mehndi that would adorn her hands. The night before her wedding, the same Mehndi artist came again. She smiled as she took Zara's hand. Last time you asked me to hide the name. This time, Zara looked down for a second, then smiled. This time, write it boldly. No secrets. The artist nodded, and as she worked, she asked, "What's his name?" Zara replied with confidence. "Mine." They both laughed. But this time, it wasn't to cover pain. It was joy, real and earned. On her new wedding day, Zara walked down the aisle with her head high. Her hands, covered in fresh henna, carried no ghost of the past. The crowd smiled. The family breathed. Her father's eyes were glassy, but this time, not from heartbreak. The rituals were performed. The vows exchanged. And when she looked at Hamza, she didn't see a prince or a rescuer. She saw a partner. Not someone to chase. Not someone to beg. Just someone who stood with her, not above her. Somewhere in the back of the hall, Ayan had come too. Uninvited. Unannounced. Alone. He stood in the shadow, watching. His eyes found her as she laughed during the ring ceremony, as she fed cake to Hamza, as she held her mother's hand with genuine happiness. But this time when she saw him, if she even did, she didn't flinch. She didn't turn.
She didn't pause.
Because he wasn't a part of her story anymore. And he never would be again. After the wedding, as she sat beside Hamza during the quiet ride home, he turned to her and whispered, "Are you happy?" She looked at her palms. The Mehndi was dark, even darker than last time. But this time, it wasn't hiding a lie. It was celebrating a truth. Zara smiled. "I'm not just happy," she said. "I'm free." They had once shared thousands of moments. Photos taken in bookstores, messages exchanged late at night, voice notes saved from random days, reminders of love that, for a while, felt eternal. But now, Zara wanted none of it. Not a single photo. Not a single text. Not even a memory she hadn't asked for. It was a week after her quiet, beautiful wedding to Hamza. The world had moved on. So had she, mostly. But grief has strange seasons. It doesn't always hit when you expect it. Sometimes, it returns quietly with a notification tone or a forgotten email. And that morning, it arrived in the form of a cloud backup. Memories from 1 year ago today. She tapped it instinctively. And there he was. Ayan. In the same cafe where it all started. Smiling. Hand reaching out. That familiar look in his eyes. Like he had always known she would choose him. Zara didn't cry. Not this time. She just stared at the image and realized something. She no longer missed him. She missed the girl who thought he would never leave. That afternoon, she sat cross-legged on the floor with her laptop, phone, and an old dusty memory box. She began with the digital. Step 1. The phone. She opened the chat thread with Ayan, the one she hadn't touched in months. She scrolled once slowly. There it was. "I love you more than life." And then, below it, "Are you still mad?" And lower still, it didn't mean anything. She doesn't matter. Her jaw tightened.
Delete.
Just like that, 3 years of messages disappeared. No backup. No hesitation. She opened the voice notes folder. The ones she used to fall asleep to. Select all.
Delete.
Her fingers trembled slightly, but her heart didn't. Step 2. The gallery. She had hidden them in a locked album before the first wedding. A digital drawer of what was? Smiles.
Selfies.
Conversations screenshotted. A note he once left in her book. "You are the home I never had." She had believed every word. And now, every image felt like someone else's life. She selected all. Paused for 1 second. Not to grieve, but to let go. Delete album.
Confirm.
And just like that, he vanished. Step 3. The memory box. She opened it. A dried rose from their first anniversary. A wristwatch he once forgot in her bag. Ticket stubs from a movie he never liked. The pen he gave her when she got into university. To write our future, he had said. And the note she had written after he ghosted her for 2 days. I forgive you. Please just come back. She picked it up now and burned it. One by one, she fed the items into a small ceramic bowl on her balcony. The paper curled, blackened, and vanished into smoke. She didn't smile, but she didn't cry either. It wasn't celebration. It wasn't sadness. It was closure. Hamza knocked gently before entering the room. He saw the mess on the floor, the empty box, the scattered papers, the laptop open beside her. You okay? He asked. Zara looked up, dust on her hands, hair in her face. She nodded. Just cleaning up some old space, she said. Hamza didn't ask more. He didn't need to. He walked over, sat beside her, and handed her a glass of water. They sat in silence, not heavy, not awkward. Just shared. I thought it would hurt more, Zara whispered. Hamza turned to her. But it doesn't, she added. It feels like I'm finally removing splinters I didn't realize were still in me. Hamza smiled gently. That's what healing is. Not loud. Just real. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you for not asking questions. I'm here for your future, he said softly. Not to relive your past. That night, Zara opened her journal. The same one that had once held late-night poems about Ayan. Now it held entries about her healing. She wrote, Today, I deleted the past. Not out of pain, but because I no longer need it to remember who I am. She closed the journal, turned off the lamp, and for the first time in years, she slept without a memory knocking at her dreams. The seasons had changed, people had come and gone, and the pain that once weighed heavy on Zara's chest now lived as a faded echo, soft, distant, and without power. Today, the house buzzed with music again. But this time, the celebration wasn't for her. It was for her daughter, Rybah. The Mehndi stage was being set in the backyard. Fairy lights blinked like little stars in the trees, and the women of the house laughed without any secret sadness hanging in the air. Zara stood near the window, watching. This was her second chance, not at love, she had already found that with Hamza, but at joy without shadows. Ami, Rybah's voice broke her thoughts. Come sit with me. The Mehndi lady is here. Zara smiled and walked over. Rybah, glowing in yellow and green, was seated on a cushion just like Zara had been all those years ago. Except Rybah's smile was untouched by doubt. Her hands were ready, arms extended, waiting for the delicate art that would soon decorate them. You're getting yours done too, right? Rybah asked. Zara laughed. I think I'm a little old for all that now. No way, Rybah insisted. Today we both get Mehndi. Zara hesitated, then sat beside her. The artist looked at Zara's hands, gently weathered by time, motherhood, and healing. Just something simple, Zara said. But Rybah interrupted, grinning. Write her name. The artist looked confused. Whose name? Rybah smiled. Hers. My mother's. Zara blinked. My name? She asked, surprised. Rybah nodded. You once told me you wore someone else's name on your hands and erased it. I want you to wear your own name this time, because you taught me we don't need someone else's name to know our worth. Zara's heart tightened, not with pain, but with something warmer, something called wholeness. The artist dipped her cone in fresh Mehndi and began to draw. Slowly, delicately, just above Zara's wrist, she wrote, Zara, bold, proud, unhidden. As the evening continued, guests arrived, songs were sung, dances were performed. And in the middle of it all, Zara sat peacefully, her hand resting gently on her lap, her name now darkening with time. Not a man's name, not a lover's promise, not anyone else's mark, just hers. Because she had finally learned something life had tried to hide from her for years. You don't need someone else to complete your story. You just need to remember that you were the story all along. Later that night, after the guests had gone, and the house had quieted, Zara stood alone in her room. She looked at her hand in the mirror. So many years ago, she had stood in front of this very mirror, trying to scrub someone out of her skin. Now, she smiled at what was written. Not a memory, not a scar, Just truth. Her name. Her journey. Her strength. Hamza walked in, wiping his hands with a towel. He saw her admiring the Mehndi and came closer. You okay? Zara turned to him, smiled. More than okay. He took her hand gently, read the name, and nodded. Beautiful. She looked up at him, eyes soft. It took me years to wear it like this. He kissed her forehead. It was always yours. That night, as she drifted asleep, Zara remembered the girl she once was. The one who cried in bridal rooms. The one who wrote letters instead of screaming. The one who erased a name from her hand so she could rewrite the story of her life. And now she had. With ink, with love, with strength. And a new kind of Mehndi.